And welcome to Pasco 360 Short Take. Today we're talking with Pasco Supervisor of Election, Brian Corley. And Supervisor Corley, thank you for joining us. Coming up on Election Day in November 2016, there's a lot to talk about prior to getting up to Election Day. Let's talk about security. There's been some talk about cybersecurity and possibly some attacks on the U.S. election system. What have you heard?
We've heard cyber attacks, rigged elections been thrown out there. Voters need to know that their vote is secure. Particularly in Florida, there's a myriad of checks and balances, and we don't use what are called touchscreens anymore. We use a paper-based ballot system. So we know exactly how many ballots are sent out, how many come back. We reconcile every precinct, every transaction that happens, every vote by mail ballot. There's a post-election audit where we randomly select a contest and hand count. So there's a reason why it's called unofficial. We verify the results from the polling place back to our election service center. So again, there's so many checks and balances. Voters in Florida and Pasco need to know that when they cast their vote, it's going to be for whom they intend to vote for, and the process is secure. They have my word on that.
A lot of things have changed since the 2000 election, and you're a big part of that, making some of those changes happen. And so you feel very secure the way things have changed over the past 10, 15 years.
Yeah, and some argue that we would, it's been 16 years since Bush versus Gore and the hanging chads, but going back to a paper-based system, what we have now is filling in the oval, of course, an optical scan, tabulator reads the ballots, and tabulates the appropriate votes, and it's secure, but also allows having that paper backup, which is huge. So it's very secure.
Let's talk a little bit about early voting. I was one of those traditionalists who always went on Election Day or primary day, and I tell you, the longer there's early voting, the more I use early voting. This last primary season I went on Sunday prior to the primary, and I'm glad I did it because there was a tropical storm a few days later, and I was just too busy. So how is that being received, early voting, and when does that start?
Early voting starts the 25th and runs through the 5th of November, 8 locations countywide. And the great thing about early voting is, particularly with the upcoming general election, we're going to offer 8 days, 12 hours a day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So you can go before work, of course after work. We have 3 weekends, Saturday, Sunday, and the following Saturday, weekend voting. It's a great convenience. You can knock it out ahead of time and know that your voting's taken care of. And it's increased in popularity probably threefold since first it was implemented in 2004. It doesn't increase overall turnout, but it provides access for the voters, which is a good thing. And we find what elections had been, Election Day has now become Election Day, early voting, and of course vote by mail. But it's become extremely popular. Once voters start utilizing early voting, they tend to stay early voters, which we like because it helps relieves some of the congestion and potential congestion on Election Day.
Are you surprised with how well it's been received in the public?
No, because it goes, like you said, you have Sunday early voting, the souls of the polls, it's called that. Go to church, then go vote. We offer, again, we will see people lined up before 7 a.m., ready to knock it out before work until 7 p.m. after work. And the weekend hours have become, it's just that, it's a convenience. People will be out and about on the weekend and say, oh, let's go do our civic duty before we go to the movies, et cetera. So it's become a very, very well utilized and very popular, and I expect that to only continue.
Let's talk Election Day coming up in November. What's the specific date?
It's going to be November 8th.
And when do the polls open? What time?
Statutorily 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Now, I was surprised. I had a meeting in July, and there was the Supervisor of Elections with their team already preparing. And I know you prepare well in advance. Let's talk a little bit about how you go about preparing for Election Day. It's quite a monumental task.
It is. It's many months in advance. We have to train practically 1,500 poll workers plus another whole team of part-timers that help us. We have a full-time call center staff right now. We have manuals. Elections are a lot like Thanksgiving. People think Election Day and that's it. And leading up to Election Day, it's been many, many months of my staff and I with not a lot of sleep and way too much coffee. But Election Day is not it. There's still a lot of work to be done because you have provisional ballots to consider. You have the post-election audit, the reconciliation. So there's a thing called the canvassing board, which is made up of a county judge, a county commissioner, and yours truly, and the 3 of us are comprise the canvassing board. So we're meeting well in advance to canvass vote by mail ballots. There's a tremendous amount. The Thanksgiving analogy is once you eat the turkey, you're not done. There's still dessert, there's leftovers, cleaning up, et cetera. And so generally, I can tell you for the upcoming election, we'll be done just before Thanksgiving, ironically enough, for the November 8th election. So there's a lot to do, but we also, my staff and I, have a passion for it, so that makes it.
Well, you've done very well over the years.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much for all your dedication and service. We were talking a little bit before the show started about absentee voting. It's no longer called absentee voting. It's what, vote by mail?
Yes, sir. It used to, and we had many voters. We advocated strongly for that change as well. Many voters, when they hear the phrase absentee voting, it sounds like you're being derelict by not able to vote on election day. Florida, you know, there's always a big microscope of scrutiny on Florida. And, you know, remember, we're the 4th largest state, but we're the first swing state. California, Texas, New York, those electoral votes have already been decided based on past voting patterns and demographics. Enter Florida, the first true swing state. And yet we get a bad rap sometimes, but we're only one of less than half of the states that offer no excuse absentee or now vote by mail voting. So we felt strongly the name was important. So vote by mail is just one of 3 ways to vote, and that has also taken off. You know, election day, again, has become the lowest utilized, and vote by mail has become the most popular method of voting.
Now, some people are under the impression that if they vote absentee or vote by mail, that their vote isn't counted unless it's a close race or needs to be. What's the myth on that?
It's a huge myth. Not only, yeah, we get that a lot. It's only, that vote by mail is only counted in close elections or recounts. Not only is it counted or tabulated, it's actually tabulated first. The canvassing board, we will convene in a public setting. We will have this upcoming election. We will have members of the media there. We'll have representatives of each political party and campaign, and as well as we should for oversight and transparency. But we will generally, the Wednesday before, so 6 days before the election, we're convening, and we are, under the auspices of the canvassing board, we're tabulating those votes, and they are suppressed, which means we don't see the results. They're put into our server that's not connected to the outside world, and they're released on right when the polls close on election night. So it's not only is it counted, it's counted first.
And what do people exactly have to do who've never done the vote by mail? Do they have to have it registered? Do they have to just sign it or mail it in, or what?
Myriad of ways. You can call our call center, 800-851-8754. They can take your request over the phone. And the great thing about the vote by mail is you can have it, say, if you're going to be out of town for this specific election, or if you so choose, you can have it through 2 cycles, through November of 2018. You can go online to pascovotes.com, and there's also a lot of the campaigns and parties will canvass neighborhoods. They may come to your house and ask you, would you like to vote by mail? They may have you fill out a card and mail it in. So there's a myriad of ways to order one.
Well, the Supervisor of Election has been very good at getting the information out with social media. Your website is fantastic, but you're using a hashtag this year. Tell me a little bit about that.
So it dates back, our hashtag is Be Election Ready. The March 15th presidential preference primary, we had voters who called up and didn't know where their polling place was, had changed parties, were unaware, a myriad of issues. And during the day, my staff and I, we kept saying, if only the voter was ready, the voter that called up and they were expressing their displeasure to me about a particular issue. And so from that was born Be Election Ready. What does that mean? It means study your ballot. We send a sample ballot out to every voter who doesn't have a vote by mail request on file. Know where your polling place is well in advance. If you've moved, everyone notifies the cable company, utility company, for example. But the last thing they think to do is notify the elections office. And that involves paperwork, or we have to redirect them to a new precinct. So, updating your address. If you've gotten married or divorced or whatever, have a name change, that as well. Updating your signature. You talk about vote by mail. One of the things we do for the integrity of the process, once we verify what we get back is, of course, you requested it. The signature is so important because my staff compares the signature. And if there's too much of a variance, it may not be tabulated. Now, we're going to reach out to the voter and say, you need to update your signature. But if they don't, then it may not be counted. So as we get older, we get medical conditions, we age. If you're anywhere unsure, get with us and we can have your signature updated. So reach out to us well in advance to be election ready and have a smooth and successful election day.
Very good. A couple great ideas. And your website is pascovotes.com. That's pretty simple. What can people see there at the website?
My staff developed the website in-house many years ago, and I've gotten more compliments. It's very easy to navigate, and there's chock full of information. You can find out, am I registered? You can request a vote by mail ballot. You can find where your polling place is. You can learn about early voting. If you want to look and see archive statistics, you can go back and see elections to the 70s. You can see voter registration statistics. We offer kids voting programs on there as well. There's something for everyone, literally.
It's great to get the children involved. Whenever I can, I bring my children to the polls so that they can see the experience, and it's not a bad idea. We're talking about children when they turn into college. Where do they vote? I know that question comes up time and time again.
Yeah, great question. If someone goes off to say University of Florida or Florida State or USF, et cetera, they have options. They can have a vote by mail ballot. They can maintain their registration here at mom and dad's house and have their vote by mail ballot sent to their dorm room or apartment, and or if they so desire, they can relocate their registration to their Alachua County, for example, or Leon County. So they have choices, and they can continue to vote by mail, or if they move their registration, so that they can do one or the other, obviously, not both, one or the other.
If you have any questions about voting, do it before Election Day. And again, your phone number for people in Pasco County who want to reach out to you.
Sure, it's 800-851-8754.
All right, and Election Day again, the date?
November 8th.
From 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., the polls. All right, get out there and vote. Talking to Pasco Supervisor of Elections, Brian Corley. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Pasco Short Takes.